One of the best times of the offseason, in my opinion. Anonymous quotes from coaches around the SEC. What are they saying about Tennessee? And shocker, it is all about Nico Iamaleava. That and more. It's your Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols, your place, your number one spot for Tennessee football news, coverage, entertainment, right here on Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch us, listen to us, download us, subscribe to us, all that for free, wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you wouldn't mind. Appreciate you everydayers for making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch. And got a fun show coming up here today. Anonymous quotes from fellow SEC coaches about Tennessee. What are they saying? What are they saying about the Tennessee Volunteers entering this 2024 season? From the Athlon Sports College Football Preview Magazine coming up in a matter of moments. Tennessee's game times have been announced for the first 3 weeks. Of course, we already knew about the NC State Dukes Mayo Classic, but what about the Chattanooga game and some of those others? Top three game times and TV destinations have been announced, plus a little bit of news from the SEC spring meetings in segment 2, and then we're going to get you set for the number 1 overall seeded Tennessee Volunteers in the Knoxville Regional, and who players-wise and really team-wise to look out for as postseason baseball begins on Rocky Top this weekend. That and a whole lot more. This is your Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Couldn't do without our friends over at Game Time, where you can download that Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Okay, so what are they saying about the University of Tennessee? Well, this is from the Athlon Sports College Football Preview Magazine. I encourage you to go pick that up, and I'm not going to give away all the quotes, but I'm going to give you some about some teams and specifically about some Tennessee. But one of my favorite reads of the offseason, that Football Time in Tennessee. It's a couple other magazines that really kind of just get me going for college football and kind of hold me over essentially for college football here in May and June. So Athlon Sports College Football Preview Magazine is one of those as well. But they do this thing where they get anonymous quotes from coaches around the SEC, meaning I want to get your thoughts on Tennessee, but I'm not going to say that you said it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's always interesting to see what they think about Tennessee. Here's the first quote about Tennessee coming from the Athlon Sports College Football Preview Magazine. Quote, that staff thinks Nico Iamaleava will be the best quarterback they've had in that system. And when they have a quarterback they're confident in, they're as good as anybody on that side of the football. The question is going to be what they put around this season. They don't have an elite wideout or obvious target, but the Tulane transfer, Chris Brazzell, is pretty decent. Okay, I agree with the top half. Certainly, they do think that he can be the best fit in this system. They think that, Nico can reach the highest of ceilings in this system with Josh Heupel and Joey Halsley. They thought that when he was in high school. That's why they went all in. And they said, in the crowded quarterback class with the Malachi Nelsons and Jaden Rashadas and Arch Mannings, it was Nico. Nico was their guy. And they went and got Nico. So I agree with the top half of the statement. The bottom half of the statement where it says the question's going to be, what do they put around this season? What do they put around him this season? They don't have an elite wideout or obvious target, but Tulane transfer Chris Brazzell was pretty decent. Have you met a guy named Squirrel White? Sure, he's not all SEC. He probably will never be all SEC. I wouldn't say he's elite. He's not going to be a first rounder, but Squirrel White's pretty good in this offense. Pretty good. In fact, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, he more than doubled Romel Keaton, who finished second on the team in targets after the regular season. Squirrel White had more than double of that from the slot. Squirrel White's pretty good in this offense and has been since his freshman year when he was getting a little bit of work and, of course, made that a start for Jalen Hyatt in the Orange Bowl. So Squirrel White's pretty good. Also, you bring back Brew McCoy, and sure, is he a dominating presence? No. Is he an elite wide receiver in college football? No. But he's a guy that has shown to be super productive in this offense. In 2022, he was the second leading receiver behind Jalen Hyatt. Cedric Tillman was in and out of the lineup. Romel Keaton was in there. But, he was steady Eddie over there on the left side. He just kept going to work and going to work and going to work. Make some big-time catches in the Florida game and the Alabama game on that last drive. Brew McCoy is steady, and he knows this system, and he's an above-average wide receiver in college football, in my opinion. Is he elite? No. But he's pretty good. Now he's coming back from injury. That's a separate conversation. How does he look coming back from injury? And, that's something we'll have to wait and see. But it's two pretty good options right there. Sure, Dante Thornton was a bust as a freshman, but he was starting to come, or as a first-year transfer. He was starting to come around before a season-ending injury at Missouri, and he had the best spring of anybody in orange and white. So we got to see it on the field. I hear you, but Dante Thornton is coming. And all that talk about being an NFL wide receiver, about being explosive, nice blend of size and speed, I mean, it's all still true. It's all still true. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Dante Thornton can do out there on the football field. And then, you throw in Chris Brazzell, who essentially you went to take his spot, right? Transfer coming over from Tulane. They put up the numbers, 7 touchdowns as with Tulane last year, a really, really good football team. How does that translate over? He's good. I agree. So you have more than enough options. And you bring back, now third-year guys in the system and Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod. You bring in a 5-star true freshman and Mike Matthews, who only caught a touchdown in every single scrimmage this spring. A lot of it's got to be proved, I hear you, but Brew and Squirrel, they've done it on this stage, okay? They've done it. Are they Jalen Hyatt? No. Are they Cedric Tillman? No. But they've done it. And then you add in all these guys who have so much potential. I wholeheartedly disagree with that statement below about the question is going to be what do they put around them. They don't have an elite wideout or obvious target. You got several, in my opinion. So that's one of the anonymous quotes from, about Tennessee. Another one here. Defensively, they're not at the level of a national title caliber programs in this league, but they're better than when Josh Heupel took over. The floor is high. Let that sink in, right? You went from Jeremy Pruitt, who is a defensive coach, to Josh Heupel, who doesn't care about I say this in jest, but Josh Heupel doesn't care about offense or defense, and then they just said that they've been better under Josh Heupel. It's funny. Okay, let me start over here. Quote, defensively, they're not at a level of a national champion title caliber program in this league, but they're better than when Josh Heupel took over. The floor is higher here, but they have question marks in the secondary. Okay, yeah, I would agree with all that. I think they have a defensive line, one of the best in the country. And I think because of that defensive line, you are going to have an opportunity to go make some plays, and they're going to save the back end a lot. And if you can have some better linebacker play compared to what you had last year, and a healthy Keenan Peely to direct traffic and go make plays, and Arian Carter and Jeremiah Thielander stepping up, you need better linebacker play, and I think you need more playmaking ability in the back end. But for all intents and purposes, it's all brand new. I mean, it really is. I'm sure Arian Carter and Jeremiah Thielander and Caleb Perry got their toes wet a little bit at linebacker. I'm sure Keenan Peely's played a lot of football, but only one game at Tennessee. And then it's Ricky Gibson got his toes wet a little bit. Andre Turnstine got his toes wet a little bit in the secondary. But, it's all new. The back seven's all new. Back seven's all new. So it'll be intriguing. The quote goes on, put them right outside of the playoff contenders for now, but the quarterback could be really special. Before you get all angry, I mean, is that wrong? Is that wrong right there? I mean, put them in the outside of the playoff contenders for now. Tennessee's going to be about a number 15 ranked team in the country. 14th, 16th, somewhere around there, entering the 2024 season. Your playoffs are 12 teams. And though it's not specifically going off the AP ranking, and I recognize all that, but you're just kind of right outside that 12-team cutoff, right? So I have no issue with that. I 100% think that Tennessee is in contention, and Tennessee is going to be in the conversation, especially if you get some big wins. But in order for that to happen, your quarterback's got to hit. And if your quarterback hits, you will have some of those wins, and then you will 100% be in that conversation. So entering the season, sure, I'm fine with them saying that Tennessee is just outside the playoff contenders for right now. But a couple of weeks into the year, Tennessee can certainly play themselves into it, in my opinion, for sure. Especially if you go on the road and beat Kentucky, or go on the road and beat Oklahoma. You beat Alabama at home. You contend at Georgia. You take care of these other games like Florida and Kentucky that you need to. You handle NC State in a neutral site game in week 2. Yeah, I think Tennessee will certainly be in that conversation, but I have no qualms about Tennessee being on the outside looking in, especially when you look at the SEC. You have Missouri, you have Ole Miss, who were kind of in that conversation as well, but look what they did last year. Better year than Tennessee, right? And look what they have returning. And then, of course, you have at the top, you have some Oklahoma's in that category as well, but you have the Georgias, you have the Alabamas. I mean, it's the SEC. You have Texas now. I mean, it's the SEC. I mean, everybody's pretty good. So some anonymous quotes from coaches around the quotes from anonymous coaches around the SEC. Really, really good stuff there from Athlon Sports. I was planning on going and getting into some quotes about some other teams, but I didn't have time. I encourage you to go pick up a copy of the Athlon Sports College Football Preview Magazine and check it out for yourself. Hey, when we come back, Tennessee has TV destinations and kickoff times and dates. We already knew the dates, but kickoff times for the first 3 games of the season. I'll tell you what that is, and a couple of notes from SEC spring meetings down there in Destin. All that and more coming up as we continue on here with a Friday Locked On Vols. Game Time is your place to buy those last-minute tickets to your event in your area. It could be a sporting event, could be comedy, could be concerts, could be whatever the case is, monster truck rallies, whatever's happening in your area. You can buy tickets to that event by using the Game Time app. And when you download that Game Time app and create an account, you can put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. That is Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off your first purchase. What are you getting at the Game Time app? Well, flash deals, zone deals, all-in prices, seat views, the lowest price guarantee, where I often try to, test the Game Time app. I'll find a price of a seat in this section via the Game Time app. I will go to another app or another ticket option. I will find that same seat and see if it is cheaper. And if it is, then Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the value. That is some customer service right there. What are you waiting on? It's also for the procrastinator. Like me, potentially you forget about it. They sell these tickets up until an hour after the event has started. So download the Game Time app, create an account, put in their promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We will discuss Tennessee's kickoff times for the first 3 weeks of the season when we come back right here on a Friday Locked On Vols. All right, guys and gals, kickoff times. Networks revealed for the first 3 Tennessee home games of the year. Of course, we already knew technically that for the Dukes Mayo Classic, Tennessee against NC State, neutral site game in Charlotte, North Carolina, that was already going to be at 7:30 on ABC, so we knew about that, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But also, from down there at the spring meetings, they announced this for the first couple of games for pretty much every team. For Tennessee, against UT Chat and Kent State, let's see here. Tennessee and UT Chat will open on August the 31st at 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time on the SEC Network. Boy, that's going to be fun, right in the heat of the day. 12:45 Eastern Time on the SEC Network, so that is on the network. That's good news. 2 weeks later, of course, after Tennessee goes to the Duke Mayo's Classic on September the 7th, Tennessee will be back at Neyland Stadium on September the 14th to welcome Kent State at Neyland Stadium, 7:45 Eastern Time, again on the SEC Network. So none of these games are going to be the streaming games so far, so maybe that matchup later in the year, that non-con later in the year, is going to be that one mandated streaming matchup. But Kent State's going to be on the SEC Network, UT Chattanooga is going to be on the SEC Network, and of course we know Tennessee is going to be in prime time on ABC against NC State and Charlotte on the 7th. So you get one early game, and then you get 2 night games kind of to begin your season for Tennessee. And, games like Tennessee versus UT Chat, get them in at noon. Let's call it a day and move along, right? I am 100% fine with that. Why these are at 12:45, it's a little interesting, or 7:45, a little interesting. I'm not sure kind of what goes into that, but nonetheless, I will take it. Early games are better against these the sorry non-con, in my opinion, because you can get in, get out, and go watch football if you're like me later in the afternoon or later in the evening as well. So that is exciting. So that was kind of the big news in terms of Tennessee from Thursday's day at the SEC spring meetings, and there's been a lot of chatter down there with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, and players have been down there, and coaches have been down there, and administrators have been down there, ADs, chancellors, and all that. It's kind of the warm-up party a little bit for the SEC, spring meetings, but this is more or less when stuff is, done administratively, right? The SEC spring, or the SEC media days it's a show, right? I mean, it's for fans, you and me, media. We can talk, we can watch, we can get video, we can get bulletin board material, stuff like that. That's kind of what that is later, and of course that'll be in Dallas later on in the month of July. But this is more kind of when they get some things done, and a lot of the topics have been, injury report's been one of the big ones. The Big Ten does it. Of course, the National Football League does it, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it hasn't happened quicker with the implementation of sports books. That's been a thing since November of 2020 in the state of Tennessee. I recognize that not every state has it legal and all that for sports gambling. But we here in Tennessee, we use FanDuel and we have a great time with it. It's America's #1 sports book. But I'm actually kind of surprised that this has taken so long to make its way to the college game, or at least to the biggest conference. Now, at the time of this recording, nothing's been settled yet. We don't know if that's going to be official. We don't know if it's going to be a thing for the 2024 season, but it's going to, essentially you'll have a doubtful. I would imagine you'll have a doubtful, you'll have a questionable, and you'll have a probable, right? And it gets this, because we go into every single week, and if you're a member of VolQuest or you listen to this podcast, I'll tell you, hey, this guy's probably not going to play. This guy's a few weeks away. We'll see about this guy, but he's probably not going to play this week, or everything's been saying that this guy's going to make his return this weekend. But you get to Josh Heupel on his Thursday press conference or his Monday press conference, and he says robotically every single week, yeah, we'll see how they look when they get out there and run around on the grass, and we'll make those decisions, kind of beforehand. And hey, he's head coach. That's how he wants to deal with it. Head coaches are secretive. Head coaches do not like to give information away. I know Mark Stoops kind of got up there and tooted his own horn and said, I pretty much tell you guys point blank who's going to play and who's not. That's fine. That's how Mark Stoops does it. This is how Josh Heupel does it. It's a little annoying. It's very robotic, but he's head coach. He can do whatever he wants to, right? And that's how he handles it. So coaches like Josh Heupel are going to hate this so much. And I'm intrigued to know if there's going to be a penalty for, say, a coach will say, I don't know if he's going to play or not, and he ends up playing. Or if a player is listed as probable, then they don't play, if there'll be a fine for that. I'm not sure. But, so many times, you just go questionable, right? Because you have so much leeway there if you list them as questionable. Because so many times, this is true. I see this on a couple of times every single year. A player will be so close to being ruled eligible to play or not by the medical staff that he will go out in pregame warmups and run around and catch balls and test out that ankle, do some cuts, all that type of stuff. And if it's good to go, then he'll play. If it's not good to go, he'll go in, take a shower, put on street clothes, and come back out and stand on the sideline. See it every single year. So I'm intrigued to kind of see what that looks like. Would there be a fine if you list a player as questionable, yet they don't even go through pregame warmups? I don't know. There's so many questions that we don't have the answer to right now. What is this going to look like? But there's been a lot of momentum. There's been a lot of talk this week at the SEC spring meetings that injury reports and injury designations will be made public potentially as early as this football season. So I'm intrigued to see what that looks like. Of course, you have revenue sharing. That's been a hot topic and everything. And so many of the student athletes are not wanting to be considered employees. What does that do for unions? What does that do for Title IX? Greg Sankey, at the SEC baseball tournament championship game when Tennessee was playing LSU on the broadcast with Tom Hart, this is last Sunday, Tom Hart pretty much said, hey, would there be a potential of eliminating sports if this happens? And Greg Sankey didn't deny it. He said, we're not in that business. We don't want that to happen. But he didn't say no. And so that's the sour part about this whole thing. Would hate to see, a non-revenue sport get cut. Would hate that. And then if that non-revenue sport gets cut, does, say it's a women's sport, does the men's sport as well have to get cut? Title IX issues. So I am wholeheartedly for name, image, and likeness. I am wholeheartedly for players getting a fair share of revenue split, because the players deserve a piece of the pie. That's what pays these coaches' salaries and what pays your university so much of the time. Was what pays your university to keep the lights on in the business building and all that. Yes, I know you bring in 30,000 students and whatnot. I get all that, but football is a huge moneymaker, and football is not the same as women's basketball. Football is not the same as men's tennis. Football is not the same as women's swimming. It just isn't, right? I want all those players, I want all those kids to have an opportunity to play and everything, but it just isn't. So when we're talking about revenue sharing, how do each specific school determine who gets what? Football players should get the most. 100% football players should get the most. It is basic economics. That is how that works. But it's tough. It's going to raise a lot of flags. It's going to have a lot of problems, because just because football players deserve more, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily mean that football players are working harder than, say, a women's tennis player or a men's swimmer or, whatever the case may be. Sure, your sport generates more revenue. Therefore, in my opinion, you deserve more of the share. but that doesn't mean you're not working any harder than this student athlete. I mean, it's going to be really, really intriguing to see what comes of this. And that's why I haven't really talked about it much on the show this week, because I still have so many questions and I still don't really know what the guardrails will be. But what I do know personally for me, I wholeheartedly for name, image, and likeness, and I am wholeheartedly for revenue split. Because these players who are putting their bodies on the line, yes, you guys can make jokes and everything and talk about, this isn't life or death. Sometimes it is. And it's for our entertainment. Football is a collision sport. It's a dangerous sport. It is. And you have back problems and knee problems and sometimes concussion issues. You deserve a piece of that pie, in my opinion. So, again, I continue to say my opinion because your opinion may be different, and that is fine. And what I want on this show, and the comments on YouTube will never be like this, and the message boards, but what I want on this show is for us to talk about things and to, hear each other out, because what I say isn't the number one thing, and it's not my way or the highway. That's not how I want this to be. So it is a unique time in sports right now, and there's been a lot of that conversation going on in the SEC spring meetings. We'll see with some of the big things that come out of it. If injury reports become final for this football season, I don't think anything for certain will be done on revenue split, obviously, because I think the quickest that can happen would be for the 25-26 academic year, but I don't think they're going to be ready, in my opinion. I mean, they got to have a plan, right? And to my understanding, each individual institution will determine what that split's going to be. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. A lot's going on right now, but something happening this weekend at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Woo, the Knoxville Regional. Tennessee's path to Omaha begins right here on Rocky Top. Who's going to come and challenge Tennessee? And what does Tennessee need to do to be victorious this weekend on its home turf? That and more is coming up next as we continue on here with a Friday edition of Locked On Vols. Tennessee gets the number 1 overall seed. I know we talked about it on Tuesday's show after Selection Monday. No surprises there whatsoever. Tennessee, co-SEC regular season champions and the best conference in college baseball. Tennessee loses a game, then runs the table, wins 4 games in 4 days after losing on Wednesday, takes home the SEC Tournament Championship title. Tennessee has the number 1 RPI in the country. Tennessee has got a top 30 strength of schedule. There were no ifs, ands, buts about it. Tennessee was going to be the number 1 overall team in the country. So, in the land, the number 1 overall seed in the land. And we talked about that curse from 1999 with Miami. We talked about it, I think it was on yesterday's show. But in order to even be in position to win a national championship, your first step is to get out of regional play. Who is going to challenge the Volunteers this weekend in regional play? Well, we'll start with Tennessee's only guaranteed team that they know for certain that they're going to play, and that is number 4, the 4th seed Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky, 35-22, the Norse. 147th in RPI, 276th in strength of schedule, 0-6 in quad 1 wins. However, this offense is good. This offense is really good. 5th in the nation in runs scored. Tennessee's 4th in the nation with 11 more runs than Northern Kentucky by comparison. Northern Kentucky's top 10 in the nation in average and in OBP and OPS. Team average is at 320. They score a ton of runs. Scored 23 runs against Youngstown State in the Horizon League Championship tournament title game. And that's nothing new for Northern Kentucky this year. They scored 20 against Milwaukee, 21 against Miami, Ohio, 24 against Oakland. Also gave up 28 runs to Missouri, including a 14-run first inning and 44 over 2 games against Mizzou. But that was a series that Northern Kentucky won earlier in the year at Missouri, so that's pretty neat. Northern Kentucky has also given up 15 or more runs in 10 games this season, so as good as it hits, boy, it doesn't pitch very well. 7.37 team ERA, that's in the 200s, folks. That is not good. However, they do steal a lot of bases. 12th in the nation in stolen bases, 125. So Joe Healy, as we heard on the show of D1 Baseball earlier in the week, I think he said it best. This is a team that will scare you for 4 or 5 innings if they come out hot. But this is also a team that should succumb to a superior opponent in Tennessee once it takes over. So don't be alarmed if Northern Kentucky jumps out and gets early runs in this baseball game. It is a 9-inning baseball game, and Northern Kentucky does not have any pitching. And so I expect Tennessee to handle business Friday night tonight against Northern Kentucky. If Tennessee were to win that game on Friday night, it would move on to Saturday night. It would continue to play the second game each day if it wins. Potentially, you'd have to play 4 games to get out of a regional if you were to lose a game. Actually, potentially, I believe you could play 5, but my math's right. No, 4. Anyway, likely Tennessee would move on and play Southern Miss, the 2 seed, because Southern Miss and Indiana get going at 1 o'clock on Friday. Southern Miss is the team that Tennessee took on in the Super Regionals a year ago in Hattiesburg. It's a solid baseball team. It's won 15 of the past 16 ball games, okay? Just won the Sun Belt Tournament Championship in dramatic fashion, finished second in the Sun Belt overall standings. It's a team that's won a program that's won 40 games in 8 straight years. That is the longest active streak in D1 baseball history, or D1 baseball right now. It's a really, really good ball club. They have a team ERA of 5, which is honestly not that bad. They have a team average of 294, which is not that bad. They got an ace in Billy Oldman, 7-2, 3.97 ERA, who I think at this time will pitch Game 1, but maybe they'll hold him for Tennessee in Game 2 potentially on Saturday. If not Billy Oldham, Tennessee will see Nico Mazza, who they saw last year in Super Regional play, 8-3, a 4.43 ERA. He was a second-team All-Conference player. They got a lot of bats up and down the order. They've got some really good bullpen arms. Overall, it's a team that's just solid. They pitch well. They play really, really good defense. And this is one of the better 2 seeds, in my opinion, because they're in regional play every single year. They are a really, really good ball club. And yet again, Tennessee gets to face off against the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss potentially. So that's the 2 seed. Then the 3 seed in Tennessee's region is Indiana. They were a bubble team, 32-24-1, third place in the Big Ten. They reached the semifinals in the Big Ten tournament, 55th RPI, 37th strength of schedule, 6-10 against Quad 1 teams. I didn't mention that for Southern Miss. Southern Miss was 8-8 against Quad 1 teams. Team ERA of 6.02, team batting average of 2.95. It's got a lineup that's pretty balanced, but pitching they got a couple nice bullpen arms. I think that their ace Connor Foley will most likely pitch Game 1, the starting pitcher, and so Tennessee could potentially see Ethan Phillips on Saturday or Ty Rybarski potentially, maybe Ty Bothwell if Indiana were to beat Southern Miss and square off against potentially Tennessee on Saturday night. So it's a well-rounded group of the remaining 3 teams, but it's the team that we're not talking about. Northern Kentucky's offense. Southern Miss is pitching and defense, and Tennessee can do a little bit of everything. So I'm intrigued to see what happens, man. At the time of this recording, Tennessee's not released its probable pitcher for Friday night, but I would assume that's going to be Chris Stamos. And at the time of this recording, I don't believe A.J. Russell will be on the active roster. We'll see what happens, but in conversations off air this week or off the record this week and with some people and certainly taking what Tony Vitello said in front of the media on Wednesday, it doesn't appear that A.J. Russell is a guarantee to be on that active roster. So we'll see what happens. Even if he is, I mean, he's not pitching more than an inning, couple outs, and just trying to do his part for Tennessee. But Omaha, the path to Omaha starts right here in Knoxville, the Knoxville Regional. And, of course, it's pitted with the Greenville Regional, with Eastern Carolina as the 1. You have Wake Forest as the 2. Wake Forest, a very, very solid baseball team. They were the number 1 overall seed this time last year. And, of course, Chase Burns pitches for Wake Forest now. You just knew the NCAA Selection Committee was going to have these 2 teams the path of where they could face each other at some point. So if Wake Forest were to win that region and Tennessee is to rise to be victorious here in the Knoxville Regional, then you would have Tennessee hosting Wake Forest next weekend in Super Regional play. We'll see if that happens, but of course, a lot has to happen before then. Tennessee, I'm excited to see what they can do. Tennessee's looking for its 4th straight regional championship. Tennessee's looking to go to Supers for the 4th straight year. And Tennessee's looking to go back to Omaha, of course. That would be decided the next weekend, but looking to go back to Omaha for the 3rd time in 4 years. It all starts this weekend with the Knoxville Regional. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in and hanging out with us here on Locked On Vols. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. I thought it was a little entertaining and had a whole lot of fun. We'll recap Knoxville Regional action and the rest from the SEC spring meetings from Destin, Florida, all on Monday's show. Until then, enjoy your weekend, guys, and this is Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the weekend, everybody.